Hello, everybody. Welcome to Towns of 505. Welcome to the channel if you're new, or welcome back if you're a loyal subscriber. And today, me and Ryan will be continuing our series through our exploring through Quentin Tarantino movies. And, we're about to talk about a movie that most people consider to be his worst movie, and that will be Death Proof. Before we begin, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing very well. Uh, I've been on a I've been on a bit of a high lately. I've listened to Led Zeppelin 1 and 2 just randomly, even though I'm like deep diving like several artists. I This is what happens when I watch the Becoming Led Zeppelin movie. I just now that I've seen how the sausage was made, I actually have to do the whole things now, and yeah, they're both excellent. So
Yeah, keep a lookout on his channel if he ever starts a Zeppelin series. I I did a Zeppelin series on Scott's channel, so I probably wouldn't join, but I'll definitely join for Physical Graffiti. That to me is like one of the best albums ever made.
I will keep that in mind.
Possibly House of the Holy as well. Those two have always been my favorite. But that's Zeppelin. Uh, before we begin, what would you say your thoughts on it beforehand? Like, what were your first impressions before getting into the movie?
I had always heard that this was Tarantino's weakest film, and I had heard that this is the one that no one really liked all that much, but when it comes to stuff like that, I always try and keep an open mind because like I said, there are movies out there that people don't like that I like and vice versa. So I always just try and form my own opinion of it, I guess. Because that's
Okay.
all you can really do.
Mm-hmm. I guess my expectations going into it when I first saw it like a year or two ago, I'm like, okay, because this was back when I was discovering Tarantino movies, and I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw it with my dad, I really didn't like it. I didn't even watch the full movie. I watched half of it. I watched the part when Stuntman Mike kills the first batch of girls, and I'm like, another hour of this? Yeah, no, thank you. So I stopped watching it. But then after a while, I'm like, you know what? Let's revisit this movie. And the more I watch this movie, the better I appreciate it. But it's still not one of my top favorite Tarantino movies, if I'm being honest.
So it's kind of unfair because we're just coming off of Kill Bill Volume 2, which
Yeah.
and we gushed about that on that stream. So anything after that was going to be at a bit of that would be like a generational run if he was able to follow that up. And I think for Death Proof I may need to watch it again one day, but I think for this one it's not necessarily terrible, but I was not a fan. And I feel like I will get more into it as the stream goes on. I just feel like there was a lot of sameness going on with just a lot of the set pieces, but we'll get to that.
Well, first, I feel like it's necessary we talk about the first batch of girls. That the first one I want to talk about is believe the first character Pam, the one that who had a boyfriend with the one that's called Nate. You could correct me if I'm wrong with these character names. I'm not familiar with the actresses who played these characters.
That is what Letterboxd is for. But I think, like I said, my biggest problem with it, and it kind of just feels like that way throughout, is that it just feels like someone got it into Tarantino's ear that the best parts of his movies were the dialogue scenes, and so there were just way too many dialogue scenes, like people talking in a car, people talking in that bar, people talking in more cars.
Yeah, I
So I
get
feel
that.
like there was just a lot of very, very similar things going on there. The main girl in the first car is named Jungle Julia, played by Sydney Tamaya Poitier, which I believe she is the daughter of Sidney Poitier. That so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What do you think about her though, Jungle Judy?
I thought she was fine. I feel like feel like they were just all well and good. I just feel like I just didn't know enough about them to really form that strong of an opinion outside of like, okay, they like drugs, they like swearing, like one of them like works at this club, and I just didn't really get all that much before or after that.
Yeah, if I'm gonna be honest, I don't really. I'm not. I'm gonna be. You know what? To make things easier for us, we that could have been your summary for them. For my summary for them. To me, I agree. They're okay. I can never remember the names of any of these characters. Part of me. Uh, there's DJ Girl, which you said Uncle Judy. Um, then there's Lap Dance Girl, who does a lap dance. That's her nickname for me because I can't remember her name. Dance Girl, and then the others. Yeah, I can't even come up with a good name for any of the other girls from the first half. It's just Jungle Judy, Lap Dance Girl, and the others.
And
I know.
that's pretty much it. And I don't want to sound necessarily like I'm being unfair here. It just for the first 30 minutes of the movie, it's them in this car, then they show up at this bar, and then it just feels very much like what some Tarantino like haters think his movies are. It's just like people talking in these weird but random but fun conversations in weird locations surrounded by obscure music that no one outside of Tarantino knows about. And it's probably going to be their first exposure to it. Surrounded by obscure movie posters and more than likely the cast filled with people that Tarantino knows about, but no one else really knows about. So, in a weird way, it feels like his most personal work, but at the same time, it feels very much like unless you're on the same wavelength as this man, you're just not going to get it. It's too inside baseball.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Um, yeah, let's move on to the characters from the other set part of the movie, the part where it's the girls who actually the second batch of girls. What do you think about Zoe Bell? Played by Zoe Bell. She plays herself.
That I was gonna say because I was looking at the letterbox and I'm like, no, that can't be right. And sure enough, it's like George Clooney playing a character named George Clooney. It's like
Yeah,
seems a bit bizarre. Um, she was okay, and I feel like I'm more fascinated with the fact that we had both Rosario Dawson and Mary Elizabeth Winstead in the same movie together, and I like both of those actresses. So I'm like, finally, we get these two in like something together. But I
yeah,
guess at the risk of chewing my food twice, it just seems very much like they're just having these conversations again with like no real like meaning, I guess. It feels very much like they're just talking about random stuff and like some plot's going to spill out from it. But in something like Pulp Fiction, for example, those conversations were random, but that was just because they were waiting to move on to other things. It feels like the dialogue in this movie feels like the foot massage scene from Pulp Fiction spread out to feature length. And it's like unlike that where it's like the intermediary of like, no, we've arrived too soon, we need to kill 5 minutes, and they walk off and like Samuel Jackson's like, I'm the foot master, and like he does that. They kill the time and then they come back. It's a detour, it's a side and not the whole meal. that side becomes the whole meal. And so at a certain point, I was just sitting there like, to quote Steve Martin from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, have a point. It makes it far more entertaining for the listener. Like, literally,
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts of the movie has nothing to do with any characters. It's that seeing in the bar, there's a big old sign that says cash only with the famous photo of Johnny Cash flipping off the camera.
Oh yeah, that was that. I like that.
And like seeing Tarantino actually being the owner of this bar, I'm like, okay, that's a nice cameo. But other than that, I just can't remember all that much from it. And I literally watched it last night. So that's kind of what it says right there.
Okay. Um, I'll kind of, I'll give you my thoughts on the 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 other batch of females. Zoe Bell, I thought she was pretty cool. She has like that Australian accent, if I'm remembering correctly. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, Mary Elizabeth Weinstein or Lee, the character. I feel like she was not used as much as she should have in the movie. If I'm being honest, like she was in it for like a little bit for the second half, but then like they had her stay with this old guy who, I mean, just by the looks of the scene, it looked like she was gonna take advantage of her. Um, not like not like in a bad way, but like because um, the other three girls wanted to take the car out, and the guy's like, "How do I know you're not going to steal it?" And they're like, you could have fun with Lee," and she was just sitting there not knowing what's going to happen, and they're like, they're like, they said she's trying to audition for a movie, and if she tries to say stop or no, she's just acting. I'm like, whoa, 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 what the heck? And the way the guy walks up to her after they leave, like she's like, what are you doing? And yeah, I'm like, I'm glad they never showed any of that. Uh, but hopefully you remember this next character, the last character I do want to talk about. That's gonna be Stuntman Mike.
I mean,
Played by,
it's Kurt Russell. So by that metric alone, like it boosts the credibility of this movie by a lot because it's Kurt Russell. Like, of course. Like, and also in the bar, there's, I don't know if you caught this, Nick, but there's like the shirt that he wears in Big Trouble in Little China. Like, it's in the background. If you didn't catch it, then like it's no problem. But I was looking for it, and I'm like, oh, there's a nice little callback there. So I wanted to know more about him. Like why does he wear Icy Hot on the back of his jacket? Like, why does he not drink? Like, where did he get the scar from? There's so many questions here. And I just wanted to know more about him. And it never really committed to it. Like he gets into like one accident and then like he dies. Like that's it. And that's like all the involvement we have with him. It's a bit of a shame.
I know they barely touch on him at all. Like that's my biggest problem with the movies, that they were so focused on, well, Tarantino was so focused on the dialogue aspect of it, he forgot to do anything else. Um, take Have you ever watched Hateful Eight before?
Oh yeah, love that one.
Take Hateful Eight, for example. There's a lot of talking in that movie, but there ends up being something. There ends up be there. They explain everything. It's funny because that movie's longer. You know you're in trouble when a movie that's longer, that has more talking, has more plot than a movie with less time and less talking. I mean, technically, there's a lot of talking in both movies, but this movie has a lot less talking because of its runtime. But for some reason, the talking in this movie feels a lot longer than the talking in that movie.
Yeah, just for the sake of context, just for the sake of like, we're not like talking out of our rear ends here. Death Proof is 113 minutes, which translates to just about 2 hours. Hateful Eight is 188 minutes, which translates to 3 hours and 8 minutes. Hateful Eight is longer, and yet I can remember more about that movie than this one.
And you didn't even watch it a day prior to making this video, so that's
Exactly.
that should be the telltale sign right there.
And I don't want to sound like I'm like dumping on the man. I feel like this, like I said, this feels very much like a passion thing for him. And what makes it even more disappointing is that I like the old fashioned logos at the start of it, where like you see the little animated jaguars, like this film is restricted, limited
Oh, yeah.
entry. I liked that. I liked seeing the Dimension logo in the old Dimension style logo, like something out of the 70s. I I get I'm kind of a mark for like seeing the older logos in movies. Like when I'll say Wicked, for example, when Wicked did the old timey Universal logo, I'm like, that's one of the best parts of the movie, and I haven't even seen the movie yet. So I love seeing old logos like attached to things. It kind of makes me immersed a little more, I guess. And so seeing the grain on the filter, there's even a couple of like editing, like a bit of cutoffs and mistakes in there. Like I liked that. I liked how Tarantino took his love for like the Roger Corman B movie era of the early 70s and tried to make something like that. I wish he would have committed to the bit. But when I saw someone pop out a cell phone and type in like the old time, like, where are you? And like, but like one of those like old school, like Nokia phones where you're like A, B, C, G, H, I, like something like that. Like I'm nostalgic for that, but at the same time, I'm really not because that was actually quite annoying. So like the technology we have today is far easier and better, but I digress. Point is, I wanted to be immersed by this, and as soon as I saw a cell phone pop out, I'm like, man. Then I
I
know I took my time with that one. I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. We're not really talking much about this movie, so the more tangents you go on, the better, because I could tell this isn't going to be one of our longer videos. Scott said I didn't see it, so I figure that. um, I don't recommend it. It's not a movie I recommend. Unless you want to say you've watched all the Tarantino movies he's wrote and directed, go right ahead. Um, Here's my biggest complaint about the movie. Before I give my favorite scenes in the movie, here's my biggest complaint about the movie. You kind of touched up on it. In the first half of the movie, where it's the first batch of girls, blah blah blah. The thing that pisses me off the most about that movie is the first half of it. You have that worn camera, 70s looking style, like the old fashioned looking style camera. And you know what? I like that. I like how old fashioned it looks. I like how it's a 2007 movie that looks like it's made in like the 70s. I think that's really cool. My problem is he only does that for the first half of the movie. Then after the killings, it switches to black and white for some reason for a little bit. And then after that, like not even like I'm like, is the second half in the movie going to be black and white? And then it goes to color and gone with the 70s aesthetic. It's like, what was the point of that? What was
Like, I'll bring back the Hateful Eight, for example. It's like in the Hateful Eight, is like for up to that point, it's like 1880s cold and windy, and then someone's like, oh, I'm totally tweeting that. I'm like, that's gonna kill the illusion right then and there. Stone dead.
yeah. That's my biggest problem with the movies, that it's not consistent with itself. Like, if you're gonna go with the style of movie, do that for the entire movie. Don't just do it for half the movie. It's like Tarantino gave up on it. It's like he was like, nah, I gave up on it. That's just my biggest complaint with the movie. And I agree with the phone. It's like you want to make it look like it's from the 70s, and you have someone point out a phone. It's like, I don't know. It's, to me, I agree.
Like somehow, like Pulp Fiction takes place in 1994, and yet somehow that feels like it belongs more in the 70s than this.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Um, you have any scenes you want to talk about? Like, you have any like particular scenes you liked, or this is kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I feel like I'm really dumping on the movie, and I'm really trying not to. But there's just I wasn't a huge fan of it. But I did have one scene that I did like: the big crash in the night, not the one in the day, but the one in the night, where Mike is stalking the first crop of girls, and he like he gets the one in the car and like basically uses like the roll cage. I'll use my motor racing knowledge skills to use that, say the roll cage, to basically kill her. And like, okay, that was interesting. Then he goes back, he stalks him, and then he like jumps like off a ramp or something, and he crashes into the roof, but like a leg gets severed, a head like goes like this. That was brutal. And I appreciated the level of like brutality there. Like that was cool. Like I appreciated like that whole little scene, like the roll cage stuff and leading up to that. I thought that was the best part.
oh yeah, my favorite. I like that part. I'll add my thoughts on it. So I like how it begins where he's like, "Where are you heading? Left or right?" He's like, she's like, "Right." He's like, "Oh, we're not gonna do that. Uh, if you would have said left, it would have taken you a while to get scared. Since you said right, you're gonna have to get scared immediately."
That part that was great. I love that. Only Kurt Russell could pull something like that off.
Oh, such a badass part. It was like, now you have to get scared immediately. It's like, oh yes. Yes, that was Tyler Durden said feet movie.
Well, I mean, he like I said, this is Tarantino's most personal movie in more ways than one. Like he was definitely he not only met the quota, but he hit the over, if you know
Uh,
what I
yeah, yeah, unfortunately. Uh One of my favorite scenes of the movie was the very end of the movie where the girls are kicking his ass, and while that's happening, Chick Habit's playing. Hang up the Chick Habit, hang it up, Daddy is like wham, wham, wham. I love that song, by the way. I don't know what you thought about this soundtrack, but I loved a lot of the songs on the movie. Art. One of my favorite Tarantino songs was Chick Habit. I'm a big fan of that song.
Yeah, that was a good song. I mean, say what you want to about Tarantino, his taste in music is just stellar every single time.
Yeah. Another song I really liked was Before the Crash Scene with the Hold Tight. Uh, the only thing I didn't like about that scene was the DJ was like, Pete Townsend was originally going to be in the band. It's like, no, that's not true. Don't don't gaslight me. I'm a music fan. Don't I know most people who are watching this are movie fans, but don't try to gaslight me into thinking Pete Townsend was actually going to join this band.
You would
Uh,
know.
exactly. I know a lot of movie people, but really? Townsend was gonna be in Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch or Tick. Um, what else? I'm trying to think of more scenes that I really like, but it's really hard.
It's gonna say it's hard.
It's not a movie that I hate. I actually like this movie. It's just there's
It's
not as
just
many.
his most unremarkable, if
Yeah,
we're gonna put a finer point on it.
like the next movie, Inglorious Bastards. I could pinpoint. We're gonna have a show talking about that movie.
That's I like I haven't even seen it yet, and I know I'm gonna have way more to talk about.
Exactly. I'm sorry, whoever's watching this. If you're like a huge fan of this movie, I'm drawing blanks because, and I've watched this movie many times. It's just I can't think of
Another
anything.
another thing that I found interesting was that director Eli Roth has a not a cameo but an actual role in this.
Yeah, I know. He, his role is so unremarkable. That's why I'd even mention him. Like
Thing
I
is,
knew.
thing is,
Sorry.
I looked it up beforehand, so I knew. But that must have been like a. I have a feeling that they're friends because Tarantino produced Hostel, which is like the thing that Eli Roth is known for. So I'm sure there must have been like an arrangement.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I have nothing to say uh yeah, about Eli Roth. That's why I knew he was in the movie. I knew he had a role in the movie. I just there's just so little I could talk about with him. He's just the guy who wants to bang chicks. That's the only thing that I know about him, and that's it. And once we get to the next movie, oh boy, I'm gonna have a show talking about him because he plays the Bear Jew. Oh, I'm excited to talk about the Bear Jew, but yeah, that scene where he's like, you're gonna point your wiener schnitzel looking finger on this map on where they are, how many men and how many and what the artillery is. I'm gonna have to get the Bear Jew out, and then, like the German soldier was like, "Fuck you," and then the guy comes out and beats the living shit out of him. Yes, I'm diverging from this movie to the next movie because yeah, there's nothing really much to talk about this movie.
No, not
Uh,
really.
so I'm expecting a really low score. What are you gonna rate this movie? 1 through 5 stars.
Uh, I'll go 1.5 and 1.5 to Kurt Russell alone. No offense to Rosario Dawson and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. They're both good actors, but this like it's especially sad considering that Winstead was in Live Free or Die Hard, my second favorite Die Hard movie this same year.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go 3 stars. I'm going 3 stars, and I want to give it higher, but there's just so much unremarkable parts in the movie because I enjoy this movie as a whole. Because I respect what he was trying to do. I do like the parts where it's like the 70s style camera. I like that when he was doing that. Um, I uh, I really liked Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell, he's like the MVP of that movie by far.
Yep.
I can't think of any other person who really matched his level. Um, I'm excited to talk about him again for Hateful Eight for sure. Um, that's about it. Again, I'm sorry to anyone who's a big fan of this movie. I want to talk more about it, but to me, this movie is just it's good, but it's never a movie I go back to. Like I
Yeah.
have to be like I have to like be in a I'm gonna marathon Tarantino to actually want to actively watch this as if I'm watching all the movies.
You have to like psych yourself up for it.
Yeah. Like I have to watch like Kill Bill right before this, get my energy high, or watching Glorious Bastards or Django or Hateful Eight, get my adrenaline high just to bring it down a notch, you know. But you have any final thoughts before we close out?
I can't wait to talk about Inglorious Bastards.
Oh, you're telling me. I mean, that movie is one of the best movies I've ever seen. I mean, it's Jews killing Nazis. I mean, how can you not like that? I mean, it's just Yeah.
I'm sure there will be some who don't, but that'll be a story for another time.
Kanye West. Anyways. Anyways, have a good one, guys. Take care.
Good night.